So I'm working on this Tecumseh engine. I'm putting a different carburetor on it. And so I need to get this choke cable to come in here at an angle like this. Now this original arm, which you can rotate, is simply not long enough to hold the cable where I want to. So I need to make a longer arm. I'm going to try to reuse this original clamp. Now this is the original piece that I need to duplicate. And this is the piece I'm going to make it out of. It's a little bit longer. I got some clearance here so that I can rotate it just a little bit farther to get it in the proper position. That's where it contacts the cooling ribs on the top of the head. So I need to duplicate this end down here. And this has a little pressed in area where the cable fits in. So to try to make something like that, I made this little die. So I got a slot milled in there. You can see the lines on the back of this piece. It indicates that's how they made that. To make the other half, I have a dowel pin here, and I machined a slot so that it just fits in there tight so it stays by itself. In order to make sure this dowel pin is lined up with that slot, I got these little stops welded on the side there, so that when this block is against the stops, then the dowel pin's lined up in the center of that slot. So I'm going to take this piece over there and put it in the press and make that divot. So I need to mark on this piece about how far from the end this is. Now I'm going to intentionally make sure my divot is too far this direction. And then I will machine the end off of it to get this perfectly lined up with the groove after I get the groove pressed in. Alright, I'm just going to square up these pieces and line up the line in the center of that slot. So I got this piece in the mill now, and I intentionally put the little divot a little bit too far from the edge. So now I'm going to use the mill and take a little bit off the edge at a time until I get the clamp centered in the right place. Okay, that looks good there. I'm going to put some Sharpie marker on here about where the hole is. Let that dry for a second. So I'm going to measure to the center in this direction. I'm going to put this piece on here. Put a line in the center of the hole in this direction. So that's where I'm going to drill the hole. So I used a spring-loaded center here to line up on the marks. I'm going to use a center drill first to get the hole on location. I'm going to drill a little bit undersized for a pilot hole. And this is a number 21 drill, so I can tap it for a 1032. And if I'm going to tap it, I like to chamfer so the outside of the chamfer is a little bit larger than the outside of the threads. Alright, so this is what your spring-loaded center is really for. It's a tap follower. So you preload that spring-loaded piece there. Allows the center to stay in the hole while it moves down. Alright, that looks good. Need to chamfer the back side of the hole. Still got a burr on it. Well, from the top it looks like it holds the cable in a pretty good position. But when you look at it from the side, you can see it needs to be about a ½ inch lower than what it is. So I'm going to put a Z-bend in there so that it holds the cable about a ½ inch lower than it is now. Alright, I got to make a Z-bend in this part here. And the bends are a little bit too close together to bend in the bender that I made that works in the press. So we're going to just bend it in the vise here. I have a piece of aluminum to hit it with here. Alright, that looks pretty square. And it looks like about a ½ inch drop. So we'll try that and see how that works. Well, here it is bolted in place. Looks like it holds the cable a little bit low. It's too close to the throttle linkage there. So I'm going to unbend it a little bit. And it should be done with that part. Well, I straightened it out a little bit. Probably moved it about an 1/8 inch up. So I got pretty good clearance for the throttle linkage there. And I went ahead and spray painted it. Let it dry for a couple of days. So that part's done there. Next I gotta make an arm to go on the choke there. So I thought I was gonna make a simple little arm here and be able to weld it on this area right here, but it turns out there's a little spring that hooks right there. So I need to avoid this area here. So I had to come up with a different arm design. So when I do things on the computer controlled plasma cutter, I can draw pictures and print them out on paper first and see how the design fits. So here's a couple of paper printouts that I made. There's only a few places on here that's got enough metal to weld on very good. So I made a piece that provides an area to put weld where you can put weld and still have an arm come around, put the hole where you need it. So this was the first attempt. The good part about printing it out is you can adjust it a little bit. So this one's going to work better. And that'll allow me to have a hole where I need it and put weld where I won't melt stuff away. So here's what the metal piece looks like. So I'll be able to put a bead of weld here on the end and a bead of weld right there in that circular area. And I'll drill a hole here before I weld it on. Well, this is what it looks like. I was able to get a couple of weld beads in there without causing any damage. And it all seems to work nice and smoothly. Alright, that's it.